Yes, yes, yes. What's going on, people, man? It's Wednesday afternoon / evening, and we're coming to you a day early for this week's Boxing Lowdown podcast, episode 29. You know how we do it, man. I've got my guy in the building with me, Mr. Laurie from AFTV. What's going on? We got a great show today. Got a great show coming up today.
Those right hands, man. That's Felix Cash right hands. Thrown with some real bad intentions on them.
That we'll get onto that, man. But that was that was a huge statement there from Felix Cash, wasn't it?
It was, man. I mean, I'm calling him the white Marvin Hagler.
I'm sure he'd like that.
Oh man,
I'm sure he'd like that, man. But listen, guys, we've got another great show for you lot all today. As always, man, you know how we do it. All of you guys, this is live, so feel free to join us, enter the discussion. Anyone that wants to leave comments, feel free to leave your comments in. I'll happily read them out. You know what? Last week, I had a lot of trouble trying to read out. I think it was the first show where I had trouble reading all of the comments because it was like going crazy. So until it gets to that, I'll always read out what I can. So for anyone that wants to show up, leave a comment. I'll happily read it. Ask us any questions or whatever. If you feel like one of us is talking nonsense, feel free to let us know as well. It's all good over here, man. We've got a stacked show for you guys today. Also, man, don't forget to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. As always, we need to get that subscriber count up. And let's get straight into the show, man. So big up to everybody. And shout out to you, Laurie, as well. Let's get into it, man. Big show today. I want to talk about, first of all, let's go on about Felix Cash and Denzel Bentley, man, because that was a 50-50 going in, so to speak. We can't really go back on it now. But a lot of people are looking at that as a 50-50. But Felix Cash, let's be honest, man, he just walked through Bentley, didn't he?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, man. And you're right in your introduction there where you said a lot of people thought it was a 50-50 fight, myself included. But I've got to say, man, Felix Cash or the White Hagler or the Gypsy Golovkin, whatever you want to call him, man, he certainly did make a statement. I've got to say I was very impressed with him. He literally did what you said. The bell went and he just literally walked across the ring, had Denzel skitting around with his hands down, chin up in the air, and he just wiped him out, man. You know what I mean? You can't really, I can't remember seeing a fight, and maybe some of your viewers out there, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember in recent times, in this country anyway, seeing a fight that was supposedly a 50-50, where one guy's just gone out there and just totally dominated the guy and just put him away like that. That was a 50-50, you know what I mean? Most times with a 50-50, it's always competitive up to a point. But with this particular fight, at no point was it competitive. And indeed, I've got to sort of cast some doubt on the commentators of that fight who unbelievably were trying to give Denzel Bentley the second round. Like, yo, bro, what are you watching? What you mean is Denzel did a little bit better in the second round than he did in the first round. And then in the third round, you saw what Felix Cash just upped the gas, landed some more right hands, and it was game over. I've got to say, man, very impressive. And you know what? On reflection, I was sort of saying to myself, well, really and truly, why was it a 50-50 fight? When you saw how dominant Felix Cash was, and then you kind of go and look back at the records and you look at Felix Cash's amateur credentials, 5-time national champion. I mean, how big and strong he was. And, you know what I mean? And the records, you kind of think to yourself, well, yeah, you know what I mean? Maybe we was a little bit premature in giving Bentley so much kind of chance of winning this fight. And that's no disrespect to Denzel, man, because listen, he's still a good boxer. It was a very bad loss, but at the end of the day, he didn't get wiped out, you know, like knocked out completely. He can bounce back, but I think it was a thing, you know, you always talk about levels in sport. And I think what this demonstrated, man, was that Felix Cash was levels above Denzel. Simple as that. And he proved it. So fair play to him.
Have to agree, man. Before I give my thoughts, let me just go to the comments. Big up my guy Ian Hamilton, man. I hope you're well, bro. He's put, hi, guys. Always love this. I need it big time today. Love you guys. And this show is the business. Always love Laurie for speaking his mind. Keep it up, guys. Yeah. Big up Ian Hamilton, man. I saw your tweet earlier, man. And I don't know if, hope everything's okay. But, we're here to give you a good show. At least take your mind off anything that's going on right now. Myself and Laura will be here to do that for the next hour, man. So big up, enjoy the show, man. Get a drink and just kick back and relax, man. But yeah, I hope you're all good, man. Hope you're all good. Let me talk about Felix Cash. Like last week, we were doing this show, we were previewing it. And a lot of people were saying, like, Conrad's put here, I didn't expect such a one-sided performance. And I think that there were a few people picking Bentley in this chat. They were saying, and I wonder if it's the whole saying, you're only as good as your last fight. And a lot of people looked at Bentley's performance against Heffron and thought, yeah, man, he's got the momentum. Do you know what I mean? We could see him doing this. But when it actually came to it, he really struggled, man. From the opening bell, Cash hit him with a left hook. Bentley's legs went. And then I thought, wow, he looks solid, Cash. And the confidence that I saw from Cash and his team going into this, they really fancied it. Even Eddie Hearn, I saw him on the stream the day or so before. And someone asked him about what did he think about the upcoming fight between Cash and Bentley. And he was getting some stick because he was like, yeah, Cash will win that within 6. And people were like, what? And literally, that's what happened. It was half that. It was in 3 rounds. So, yeah, man, when you look at it now in hindsight, obviously it's easy for us to say, Cash was a level up. But going into it, a lot of people thought Bentley was going to be, at least 50-50 with him.
Yeah, listen, man, I was one of those. I'm not going to lie, man. I got that totally wrong. I thought that Denzel was going to be a stiff test for Cash. In fact, I could see, a pathway to him winning, based on the improvements he'd shown, certainly in the 2 Heffron fights. If you remember in that first fight, I think if you go back a number of shows ago, when we discussed the first Heffron fight, I remember saying to you that I thought that Denzel was lucky to get away with a draw because I remember that some judges may have seen the way he was moving around the ring and given the fight to Heffron. But in the second fight, Denzel completely changed his tactics and he was spot on and he won comfortably. And I was thinking, he's shown that level of maturity and that level of improvement that would give him a chance against Cash, And also, I was looking at the body language of the 2 fighters, and yes, Felix was very self-assured. I mean, he's not the greatest talker, Felix Cash, but he's one of those guys is when he talks, you tend to believe what he says, man, because he's got that look on him, that he's got that look of conviction about him. And but then having said that, Denzel looked very confident as well. He was, he spoke very confidently. His body language kind of gave me the impression that he was up for this one. And he talked about this sparring session, which had to get cut short, apparently, because it got so heated. There wasn't too much in the way of who won the sparring session. And to be fair, even Felix didn't really play that sparring session up that much, did he? So I'm thinking to myself, maybe Denzel took a lot of confidence out of that sparring session. Maybe he thought that he was able to handle what Felix threw at him that day, and that gives him confidence going into this fight. But I have to say, man, as soon as the bell went and I saw the way that Felix Cash went across that ring, claimed the real estate, claimed center ground, landing the better shots, hurt Denzel within seconds, and he didn't let him off the hook. You had to say, man, it was a very impressive performance. And you're kind of wondering how far Felix Cash can go.
We're going to get onto that, man. Big up a guy called Henry, first of all, man. Hope you're well, bro. Good to have you here. This might be your first time on the show, from what I remember. If it is, enjoy it, man. Feel free to leave comments, and good to have you here. Conrad has put a lot of those more flashy boxers look good until they meet someone who is fast and strong. Now, what next for Felix Cash, man? Because that was a tremendous win. You know what I mean? Won it in spectacular fashion. The domestic scene at middleweight is looking pretty decent. At the top, you've got Chris Eubank Jr., who's fighting this weekend. You've got Liam Williams, who fought the weekend before. Where does Felix Cash rank amongst them? I know he said he wants to go for the European belt, but those domestic fights there are pretty tasty.
Yeah, you're right. There's some pretty tasty domestic matches. I mean, imagine him in with the likes of a Chris Eubank Jr. or a Liam Williams, man. I mean, those are must-see fights, you know what I mean? But I think that Felix Cash, and indeed he alluded to it in the post-fight interviews, he was saying he wants to go down that traditional route of now he's got now he's got the British title. He wants to acquire the European title, defend that, and then move on to world titles. And that kind of makes sense, to be honest. But if you can get one of those mouth-watering British fights, why not?
Yeah.
But I don't see either Liam Williams or Chris Eubank Jr. entertaining Felix Cash at this stage of their careers. I mean, let's take Liam Williams first. He's just come off the back of that very, very good moment. Let's be honest, man, a very hard fight for him, very physical, very grueling, very tough. He had to travel. So, you know, he's not going to want to get straight back in there with a Felix Cash. And then you got Chris Eubank Jr. He's fighting this weekend. I would imagine he's going to win that fight, and then he's going to want to go on to a world title fight of some denomination. So if you're Chris Eubank Jr., taking on Felix Cash with no disrespect to Felix Cash, he'd be looking at as a retrograde step, because he'd be thinking, listen, man, I'm up there with the contenders for the world title. You know what I mean? And he's been calling out like.
What about the opponent he's fighting this weekend then?
Well, I think that's no disrespect to his opponent, Marcus Morrison, but that is a marking time fight, isn't it? He's been out the ring for a while, and I think they just wanted an opponent. They've got a British opponent, so, you know, I mean, no years. We're expecting Chris Eubank to win something conveniently, and he'll no doubt he'll use that as a platform for calling out the likes of Golovkin and Charlo and people like that. So I don't see him agreeing to fight Felix Cash anytime soon. But I have to say that both of those fights, man, would be intriguing fights. And fights that I have to be honest and say that I wouldn't rule Felix Cash out of winning either of those two fights.
A guy called Henry has put here, can we say Eubank at 160 is a much more exciting proposition than at 168? He's super physical at the weight. I think he would beat Cash at this stage. What do you think, Laurie?
Yeah, I think he's right on both of those points. I think Eubank is a better 160 than 168. Indeed, he's even said that himself. I think he says he has to actually eat up to making 168. So 160 is his natural weight, middleweight. He does look a good physical specimen at that weight as well. I think at the moment you'd have to put him ahead of Cash. But you know what? You know what I mean? The rate of which Cash is improving, you never know, man. A year from could be a fight. I'm sure it will be a great fight.
Conrad Boxner said here, I'm still not sure where to put Eubank's ceiling. It's quite hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with Chris Eubank, listen, he's had some good wins. He's, you know, I mean, he pretty much retired James DeGale. Okay, you could argue, say that it wasn't James DeGale of you know, bygone eras. You know what I mean? He's had the fights with, who was the guy, the Russian guy he was in? With
name escapes me now.
Yeah, Barrett. No, it wasn't Barrett. Not Beryevchenko.
No. Second round, wasn't it? Where
yeah.
Oh,
it was a bit of an unsatisfactory finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got that name on his record as well. He's got Arthur Abraham's name on his record. You know what I mean? He's got a few names on his record. Which suggests obviously that he's at a higher level at the moment than the likes of Felix Cash. So, you know what I mean? I can understand Eubank. He's going to want to get this fight this weekend out the way. And then I'm sure he wants to do well. Depending on the nature of the finish or the nature of the win, he's going to use that by way of calling out the big guns at that weight.
Well, we've seen him call out, and let's just get onto the show now while we're here. But we've seen Eubank call out, you know what I mean, Charlo. We all got excited about that last year where it looked like that them two were on a collision course. All of a sudden, like, that doesn't happen. You know, he's called out Triple G. He's called out all the big names. And no disrespect, he's now in against Marcus Morrison. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, is Eubank just a master at strategizing his career and putting himself in those positions to keep his name up there without having, I mean, he has fought at the top level before, but we've seen what's happened. But, you know, we were all thinking, yeah, it could be Charlo next. It could be this person. And now we got Marcus Morrison. But like you said, maybe it's just a ticking over fight with no, like, not meaning any disrespect, of course.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's just signed with the Sauerlands. So that's a new promotional deal. I must admit, I was slightly surprised at that. I thought he might go down the PBC route. But anyway, signed with the Sauerlands. They've said on the record that they can get him those big fights. I think the Sauerlands do have a connection with Triple G's team. So they obviously think that they can get Triple G in the ring. And I'll tell you what, man, this may sound a bit crazy, I mean, obviously, depending on what happens this weekend in his fight, but I'm expecting him to win and win well. And if he does that, and if he calls out Golovkin, listen, Chris Eubank Jr. is not going to be any less of an opponent than some of the recent opponents that Triple G's fought. It's whether Triple G's going to want to entertain Eubank. I think Triple G's got his eye on Murata, hasn't he? So, you know, there might be some big fights for him to pursue there. So we'll see what happens. But I would imagine that is the route he wants to go down, the Triple G route. And that will depend, obviously, as if Triple G gets past Ryota Murata, who he's scheduled to fight. I think it's at the end of this year, isn't it?
Yeah, we said
why they're having to wait so long for that, I don't know. But, you know. But he's still a live dog, I would say. I'll say he's a live dog at the middleweight division.
Ian Hamilton has said here, Eubank has made out a career of calling out everyone and not really following through. We all remember the Triple G negotiations. I wait to be proved wrong on Eubank Jr. And he's got a point. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Yeah, listen, I can understand people having those reservations about Chris Eubank Jr. because, like I said, he has called out everyone and he hasn't always fought these guys. So, yeah, I mean, so whilst that persists, you know, I mean, that case will be made against him. But he does have talent. He does have the name. He is an exciting fighter to watch. And I'd like to see him get those fights, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, what about the show in general, man? Let's talk about it, man. Chisora against Parker. You know,
my friend Joseph Parker.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just know. Like, you guys get ready. But look, with this, we're finally here. Do you know what I mean? And when I say that, I mean with the amount of weeks we've been going back and forth on Joseph Parker in particular. Listen, I don't doubt that Joseph Parker is the favorite. I expect him to be the favorite. But it's just the fact that I saw someone tweet it the other day. The fact that a lot of people are starting to think Chisora could do it shows just how disappointing Parker has been when you look at his talent, isn't it? Because Chisora really should not be having much of a chance here against Joseph Parker, considering he was a former world champion, Joe Parker. You know, he's built up his career since his defeat to Dillian Whyte, but he's just not been impressive to me. And like, can Chisora be that guy to take Parker out of his comfort zone? He might in the opening couple of rounds. If he sticks it on him, puts his head in his chest and goes forward, you know, does what he needs to do. Will Parker be able to handle that? I know Usyk was a mover. Usyk is a lot more slicker than Parker, but I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think that people picking Chisora to have a good chance against Parker shows how disappointing Parker has been?
Yeah, I can. And yeah, you're right. Them picking Chisora is a reflection of how disappointing Joseph Parker has been and can be. I mean, you look at Joseph, and that's one of the most disappointing things about Joseph Parker is that you look at his physical stature, you look at some of the physical gifts that he has, the size, the speed. He has decent power. And he looks like a real athlete in there. You know what I mean? I've said it before on this show that I've watched him in training and you see him on the track and the man's like sprinting and you're thinking, wow, man, you know what I mean? There's not many heavyweights in the world that can hang with him on the track like that. You know what I mean? But obviously training and being on the track and fighting is two different things. And for me, he just doesn't have the mindset of a top fighter, especially at heavyweight where these guys have to dig down and let their hands go and be prepared to get in there and, you know what I mean, stuff like that. And I think that's the difference between him and someone like Derek Chisora, who is physically the opposite, really, isn't he? I mean, you look at the two of them standing side by side. Joseph Parker looks cut up for the most part, muscly, looks powerful. You know what I mean? He looks like he's ripped and ready to go. But so often, man, in the past, and I'm including that fight he had with Junior Farr, which I called on your show one of the worst fights I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And and I stand by that, man. If you want a cure for insomnia, go and watch that Joseph Parker versus Junior Farr fight. And these guys were hyping it up like it was some big, massive fight. And after the fight, they were giving each other credit, saying, yeah, this was a great fight. And I'm like, bro, are you sure? It was terrible. You know what I mean? And I'm not being funny, man, but a lot of Joseph Parker's fights fall into that category. We all saw the fight with Hughie Fury. We saw the way he performed against Anthony Joshua, where he clearly didn't want to know. We saw the fight with Dillian, where, again, he had physical advantages over Dillian. But the reason why Dillian was able to push forward, drop him, and beat him was because Dillian wanted it more, and it showed on the night. It was evident. And I just don't think, okay, Joseph Parker, I mean, he's had some issues outside the ring. Some of your viewers may have heard about this alleged methamphetamine ring. And I say alleged because it's alleged that he's supposed to be involved in. He subsequently moved to Britain. He's got a new trainer in Andy Lee. So they're obviously trying to reinvent him. But in his early 30s, is that possible? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a mindset thing. And, no doubt he's going to talk smack before the fight and tell us how much improved and how different he's been and how great he's been doing in sparring and how many people he's banged out in sparring and this and that. But, if Derek walks across the ring and puts it on him, man, and lands a couple of good shots early, I'm worried that you're going to see the same old Joe Parker, which is jab and grab. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Yep. Jab and grab and hold and wait for the referee and then let off a few punches that look good, but they don't land and then fall into the clinch again. I'm worried that this could be another one of those fights, man, because we've seen it before with Joseph Parker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Several times. So,
both of them.
Listen, I do expect him to beat Derek because let's face it, man, Derek is in the twilight years of his career. He's had a long, hard career. He's been stopped a few times. He's taken a few beatings. He's essentially a 4-round fighter, isn't he, Derek? He'll be all right for the first 2, 3, 4 rounds, and then we'll start to see what we saw in the Usyk fight. He'll give of his best, and then the body will start to betray him a little bit because, let's face it, he just doesn't have the engine that he once did. And I would expect Joseph Parker to be the victor. Points, most likely, but it could be even a late stoppage if, Joseph Parker shows some bites down on his gum shield and shows some real venom. I don't know. We'll see.
Will be interesting because, Derek Chisora has got a new trainer in Buddy McGirt. Joseph Parker, as you said, he's being trained by Andy Lee. Let's see what sort of influence they'll have on those fighters on the night. But let's go to the comments quickly.
I just want to say quickly, that's a weird choice, isn't it, Buddy McGirt, for Derek Chisora? Because, let's be honest, man. Buddy McGirt is not known for, bringing out the aggression in fighters, isn't it? I remember when Arturo Gatti used Buddy McGirt. The reason why he brought Buddy McGirt on his team was to introduce some street smarts and make him harder to hit. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that didn't quite work either. So you do wonder what the nature of that relationship is. I saw an interview with Buddy McGirt prior to this fight where he's saying that up until Derek asked him to train him, he'd not even seen Derek Chisora fight. So you do wonder how that's going to work. But hey, man, I guess we can never really tell until fight night, but we'll see. So you do wonder what they'll be working on. Because I would imagine that the only tactic Derek has to beat Joseph Parker is just to be aggressive. It's just to march forward and let his hands go. And that's what I'm saying. I could see him doing that for 2, 3, 4 rounds. But unless he's going to get Joseph Parker out of there. And the one thing I would say about Joseph Parker as well is that he's got a very good chin. He's been in there with some big punchers. He's been in there with Andy Ruiz. He's been in there with Dillian White. He's been in there with Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? And none of those guys could get him out of there. So if they couldn't, I'm sorry, but I don't see how Derek's going to do it. But hey, man, we'll see.
Conrad has said here, people said the same before the Usyk fight. What followed was a usual Chisora performance where he just falls short at that level.
Yeah.
Jeff TV, big up Jeff, man, in the house. He's put my UK family, Boxing Lowdown and Laurie. I'm taking a Ryan Garcia break from podcasting until tomorrow.
Now, Jeff, we're not supposed to joke about so-called, mental health issues. So, but I hear you, man. I hear you. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about that soon. Yeah.
We're going to be talking about it, man. He's also got Chisora here in an upset over Mr. Jab and Grab.
You know what? I would love to see that. I would love to see that, man, because, Parker's one of those guys, man. I just wish he'd disappeared from boxing, to be honest. We've seen it all before. Flaps to deceive. I think I said before, Daryl, to you that in boxing, he's one of the most flattering to deceive fighters you could ever wish to see. And it's been going on a long time now, I see. And he keeps doing it to us over here in the UK. He keeps coming over here talking all this stuff. I'm this, I'm that. Yeah, I'm going to do it. And then he never does it. Never performs up to the optimum level. And here we are again. But like I said, on this occasion, I do expect him to beat Chisora. It's just the way he's going to win, I think. Is it going to be a jab and grab snore fest and him, win a points decision? Or is he going to try and assert his dominance and then go for the stoppage? We'll see. But I hope Derek wins, but I can't see it.
I hope Derek wins as well, man. Conrad has said here, strange how I actually got a bit hyped for this fight in the past week. I'm telling you, that's what fight week can do. And he's going for the upset. He's going for the upset with Parker knocking Chisora out in round 9. Okay, so you're going for the pick that's not really, I don't know, that's not an upset, is it?
No. And listen, Derek has been knocked out before. I mean, he was brutally knocked out by David Haye. He was brutally knocked out by Dillian Whyte. He's been stopped by Tyson Fury. He's had a long career. He's had a lot of hard fights. And he's been in there with some murderous punches, Derek has. You know what I mean? And all that takes its toll. And he's been boxing for a long time. And he's had a number of defeats. And he's also at the advanced stage now. So, you know what I mean? How much is really left in the tank? Not that much, I would have thought.
Conrad said he looked wobbly against Usyk that time. He did, yeah, he did.
Yeah, well, with that one, I don't know. Was it a combination of him being wobbled and just tired, just fatigued from the effort that he put in? Because to be fair to Derek, against Usyk, man, he left it all in the ring, didn't he? That's the one thing you can say. That's the one thing that Joseph Parker never does, leaves it all in the ring.
And how much is Parker going to open up? How much will Parker open up, man? That's the thing. Like, we've seen the talent, we've seen the flashes of it, but is he going to really open up, put his foot down, and really try and take Derek out? I can't see it. I can't see it, man. Ian said here, a big fight week with Parker involved. We hold our reservations. I pray to God this is a half decent one. The best hope we have is that Chisora brings it. Yeah, he's got to bring it.
Derek will bring it. Derek will bring it. But like I said, for how long can he bring it? You know what I mean? That's the thing about Derek. He's become a 3 or 4 round fighter these days. And the other thing about Derek is he's on the record, and I've seen the interviews where he said he's in this for the money. He's not in this for titles. Now, I would venture to suggest when you're in fights just for the money, what is your real motivation when the going gets really tough in there? When he realizes that the jab and grab thing is working for Parker and he's building up rounds and winning rounds, and Derek's going to realize he's behind, how hard is he really going to try to overcome that and knock Parker out? Because like I said, he's not going to win a boxing contest against somebody of Joseph Parker's athleticism. He's just not going to do that. So I do question that a little bit. He's on the record as saying, listen, man, forget titles. I'm only in this for the money. I want, you know what I mean? So you do kind of think to yourself, well, if things are not going Derek's way, how is he going to respond? You know, when he goes to the rounds down on the cards, is he really going to try that hard to win? Or is he just going to, you know what I mean, throw haymakers and just hope to land? I don't know what the strategy is going to be. I guess we'll have to wait till fight night.
Got to make it ugly. He's got to make it gritty. Put your head in his chest, man. Rough him up. Do what you need to. That's how you need to beat Parker. Yeah. Get in there, make it ugly. Try and get away with as much as you can with the ref. Do you know what I mean? Like, really drag Parker into a dogfight. Make him not want to come out for the next round.
That's right.
Like, I think on the way in, but he needs to make it ugly.
I think another point another factor that we do need to throw in there as well is, and this is going to be important for Derek's chances, is the referee. Now, if a referee is going to put them up into a clinch, then Derek has got very little chance of winning this fight. If we got a referee, on the other hand, that's going to let them work inside and allow Derek to rough him up on the inside a little bit, then obviously that works more in Derek's favor. So the appointment of the referee is going to be crucial in this fight, I believe.
Yeah. Big up my bro Stefan in the chat, man. He's put Joseph Parker fight week with a love-struck face. So I think so yeah, man, I think we know how these guys are feeling about it, man. But let's get on to the rest of the card, man, because conscious for time, got a lot to talk about. The rest of the card, man, the chief support, you know, all-female action, a rematch from their amateur fight. Katie Taylor and Natasha Jonas. This card is actually stacked with a lot of names. Let's just say that. It's got a lot of names on this card. How many 50-50 fights would you say are on there, though? Let's start with Taylor and Jonas. I'm guessing you're picking Taylor to win this, but how much of a chance do you give Jonas?
Not much. And that's no reflection on Natasha Jonas, who's a very good fighter herself, very good boxer, Olympian, very good amateur on the GB squad and all the rest of it. Fought Katie Taylor in that legendary women's match back in 2012, where they said that the decibel levels raised on that night was, broke all records and stuff like that. But then listen, man, that was 2012. This is 2021. Katie Taylor's gone on to have a supremely successful professional career. Hasn't lost yet, although technically she hasn't lost, but I think she lost at least once, possibly twice, to the same person. But anyway, that's another factor. But Natasha Jonas hasn't really hit the heights yet, has she? She got stopped by, I think it was Vivian Obanoff.
Yeah.
She had a loss there, which was very surprising at the time. Vivian Obanoff apparently has also fought Katie Taylor, and she lost the points decision to her. So they do have a common opponent. But I just think, man, if you look at the levels, if you look at the trajectory of the two fighters, man, Katie Taylor is clearly the more accomplished in there. Listen, man, let's keep it real. Even if Natasha does really well and boxes Katie Taylor's head off, she's not going to get a decision. And I'm just keeping it 100. We saw that with Delphine Pursoon, absolutely beat Katie Taylor, pushing her around the ring, hitting her at will. Won comfortably, not just in my opinion, not just in your opinion, but in pretty much all the neutral observers' opinion. She won that fight at a canter, and yet unbelievably she was robbed. They had the rematch. It was a closer fight, but I thought Delphine Pursoon done more than enough to get the win or a draw. I thought clearly a couple of times. Again, she got stiffed, left empty-handed, and I think that's one of the problems with Katie Taylor's career, man. It's almost like Canelo kind of syndrome, isn't it? You're going to have to knock her out to win. And I don't think Natasha Jonas possesses that power. I don't think she's got that same level of physicality that someone that a Delphine Pursoon has, where she was able to rough up Katie Taylor, push her on the back foot, make it uncomfortable for her. Natasha Jonas, quite a skillful operator with a decent punch. But I don't think she's got enough to beat Katie Taylor. But you know what? I would like to see for women's boxing and for Natasha Jonas, who seems like a lovely person. I'd love to see her get the win. But I can't see it, man. I really can't.
Natasha Jonas, in my opinion, beat Terry Harper. Do you know what I mean? She didn't get the decision there. Yeah. So, but Joe Gallagher's kicked off. He's kicked off and he said, look, man, I want to know who the judges are. He's doing the right thing, in my opinion.
He is.
He's out there that he's on it. Do you know what I mean? If it does go to the cards and it's close, he's putting it out there. So, listen, I think that Katie Taylor will win.
He's doing his job. He's there to protect his fighter, a bit like I like what the Billy Joe Saunders team are doing as well. They're drawing attention to the fact that they feel they've been shafted by not having a British referee. I know this is something we'll talk about in the coming weeks. But again, some people are saying Billy Joe's moaning and Joe Gallagher, you're moaning before. No, you're not. You're drawing attention to a possible problem. We've seen it with Delphine Pursoon. You know what I mean? And with Natasha Jonas, she's come off the wrong end of a decision that you quite rightly said there. A lot of people thought she should have beaten Terry Harper. I thought she won that fight as well. Although that fight was closer than the Delphine Pursoon-Katie Taylor fight, the first one, where Delphine Pursoon absolutely won that. There was no, you know what I mean? It was dreadful. It's one of the worst decisions I've seen in a boxing ring.
That first fight, sorry, man. That first fight,
was disgusting.
I couldn't believe it.
Listen, even people like Barry McGuigan, Carl Frampton, like Irish legends who support Kaylee Taylor from the jump, even they said that Delphine Pursoon won that fight. So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And I just look at that card tomorrow. It's a pay-per-view. It's a big fight. I just think if it goes close, man, listen, Katie Taylor's probably going to start 3 or 4 rounds up on the cards. Yeah. Natasha Jonas is going to have to do something dramatic to win. And as much as I respect Natasha, I just can't see her doing it in this fight. So I'm going for Katie Taylor, points decision.
A guy called Henry has put here, those 2-minute rounds equals no KOs below middleweight. Kieran Rogers, my bro, what's going on, man? He's put, I'm more interested in this fight than Chisora-Parker, to be honest. And Stefan has put here, the card as a whole is very weak. it would be a very good Sky show, but as a pay-per-view, it's very poor. Lots of big names, but not many interesting matchups. Like I mentioned that earlier.
That's an interesting point there, man. I mean, I know me and you, Darryl, we went back and forth, didn't we, in some private telephone conversations about this card. And initially, I'd said to you, there's no way I'm buying it. And then you did say to me, but if you look at the card, there's some big names on there, some interesting fights. So then I took the trouble to review it. And I thought, well, actually, you know what? There are some good fighters on the card. I mean, Dimitri Bivol's on there, Chris Eubank, Katie Taylor, and Tasha Jonas, you know what I mean? So there are some names on there. Whether those fights they're involved in are competitive fights, though, is another matter. And this is where I allude to what Stefan's saying, you know what I mean? Yeah. Big names, yes, but are they competitive fights?
Bivol Richards.
I mean, looking at this, are there any 50-50 fights on that card? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so at all. Because like I said, I clearly expect Joseph Parker, for all his foibles, to come through against Chisora. I clearly expect Katie Taylor to beat Natasha Jonas. Clearly expect Chris Eubank Jr. to come out on top against Marcus Morrison. And even the next fight we're going to talk about, Bivol and Richards. I clearly expect Dimitri Bivol, Shane's idol, to come out on top in that fight as well. So I don't know, man.
Campbell Hatton on the show as well.
Well, he's not going to lose, is he?
Yeah, Scott Fitzgerald. Listen, this is my point about this show. And I'm curious to hear what you and Stefan have got to say here. Because, okay, there are a lot of names on here. Not as many 50-50 fights. But like I said, we are in a pandemic right now where we don't have fans at the venues. There's a lot of big names on here. So it's more of a showcase, isn't it, I suppose? And when you look at the current market for pay-per-views nowadays and what we're actually being delivered, this ain't the worst to me. This ain't the worst simply because of the names and the amount of people on there and the fact that we ain't got no fans. That kind of like makes me think, you know what? Listen, it's not a very good. There's not many 50-50s on here, but I'll just pay for it anyway. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, Stefan is right in his opinion. You're right in your opinion. But I just think that I'm not kicking off as much as everybody else is when I look at that card.
Well, you know what it is, right? I think we have to be honest and say that we are kind of moving into an era of boxing where pay-per-views are going to start to become the norm. Because years ago, a card like this, people would have scoffed at it if you'd have said pay-per-view. They'd have said, listen, man, I'm not paying no £20 for this. You know what I mean? This is a joke thing. But I think with the proliferation of pay-per-views now popping up all over the place. So I think that's the kind of environment we're living in. Then you throw in the COVID situation where the fact that a lot of people are going to be at home on Saturday with not much else to do. So they might think, you know what, I might as well buy it. I can't even go down the pub, you know what I mean? Unless I'm waiting to sit outside, you know what I mean, in the freezing cold with my pint and all that type of stuff. They might say, oh, I could do worse than stay at home, get a few beers in, invite a few friends around, and we all chip in and pay for the fight and watch it. The other thing I would say as well is that there's another pay-per-view going on that night in America, Chris Arreola versus Andy Ruiz. Now, when you compare that pay-per-view up against this one, you could argue, and not only that, they're probably paying $50 for that one.
It is $50.
And even at the exchange rates, you're probably getting a better deal with the pay-per-view here. So I think that's the kind of route we're going down in boxing at the moment, where pay-per-views are almost becoming the norm, which is disappointing in itself. But I have to say, man, it's not pay-per-view quality for me. And like you said, Darryl, you made the good point. Yes, there are some very good names on the bill, some big names. But are the fights particularly competitive? I think the fight that screams out to me as being the most competitive is the Katie Taylor, Natasha Jonas fight. But even for the reasons that I described earlier, I don't see that as being as particularly competitive, because I think, unfortunately, the way boxing politics work, Natasha Jonas has got very little chance in this fight. We don't see hardly any KOs in women's boxing. She's up against one of the women boxing's legends of the modern era. And I think if it goes to the scorecard, she ain't going to get no love. I'm just keeping it 100, bro. That's it.
Let's quickly talk about Bivol and Richards before we move on. How much of a chance? I mean, Dimitri Bivol, another fighter that flatters to deceive. Do you know what I mean? This guy, let me talk about Dimitri Bivol, and it's a shame that Shane ain't on here. But a few years ago, this guy was being hyped up. He was headlining HBO. They did the big feature on him. Andre Ward talking about it. Do you know what I mean? Dimitri Bivol was looked at as the guy. Now he's fighting on a Chisora-Parker undercard, man. Like, what? This guy, he flatters to the game. Like, he hasn't been.
You know what? I couldn't have said it any better than you myself. What you said there sums up this guy's career. Listen, anyone who's seen this guy fight knows that he's an exceptional talent. And if you look at his record, he's got some good wins. He's beaten Joe Smith, he's beaten Sullivan Barrera, and one or two others. You know what I mean? He's one of the best, if not the best, protagonists in the light heavyweight division. But shall I tell you what really sucks about Dimitri Bivol? And we saw an example of that this week. Is that he's here fighting Craig Richards, right? And this Craig Richards, by the way, calling out Canelo. I'm like, bro, stop it already. You're calling out Canelo. You've got in your division from the same country as you a guy called Artur Beterbiev, right? You know what I mean? That's who you should be going after. To me, him talking about Canelo, I could come down in weight, and that just tells you everything about this guy, man. You know what I mean? He's not ambitious enough. You should be looking to clean out your division. What are you talking about Canelo for? We all know that when Canelo went up to light heavyweight and took Kovalev, he was just seizing an opportunity. That's what Canelo does. He was seizing an opportunity. He's not a light heavyweight. He's on the record as saying that he's not a light heavyweight. He went up there to win a title. We've seen Gervonta Tank Davis doing a similar thing, moving up and down in weights, picking off guys who they think are vulnerable, who they can beat, so they can put another title in the bag. We've seen Adrian Broner do it. We've seen Floyd do it. We've seen countless other fighters do it. But Dimitri Bivol is a world champion light heavyweight fighter. You're not going to get Canelo. You should be trying to go after Beterbiev and make that fight. And that is the problem I've got with people like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think like some of the comments here. Nathan, Bivol is quality, but he's been too inactive recently.
And he's happy being inactive. That's the thing. A guy like that, he's happy being inactive. He's only taken this fight against Craig Richards because he's thinking it's an easy fight for him, which is why, shout out to Craig Richards, man. I'd love Craig Richards to beat him because I think Bivol's underestimating him because Craig Richards is not at the level of Bivol. I'm not going to pretend that for 1 minute. But if you look at his trajectory, it's upwards. He's improving and he's on a good run of form. And I know for a fact, people who know Craig Richards, that he's a prodigious trainer. You know what I mean? So he would have been training his ass off for this fight. And I'm hoping that he can get the win somehow. You know what I mean? I can't see it. And that's no disrespect to Craig Richards. Again, it's levels. Bivol has operated at a higher level than Craig Richards has, both as an amateur and as a professional. He's right up there with the top light heavyweights in the world. But the problem I've got with people like Bivol is you're not trying to take on Beterbiev. You're calling out 5'8", super middleweight Canelo instead of going after Beterbiev, who's a real killer at the weight. And that says everything about his career.
A guy called Henry's put here, Bivol stuck somewhere in the middle of this card is rogue. Stefan has said here, Bivol is quality. He just hasn't got a fan-friendly style. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that Bivol, he is quality. I mean, we've seen it. But like you said, why is he not chasing after Artur Beterbiev? Yeah. I don't know. Nathan,
because he realised it's serious smoke and he don't want that smoke.
Nathan said here, James Tennyson is on the card. Oh, you mean the guy that beat Gervonta Davis? That one, yeah. James Tennyson is on the card in an IBO title fight against a Mexican fighter called Giovanni Staffon. I like Tennyson, exciting fighter. Yeah, listen, this card, man, it's got some names on here.
It's interesting about James Tennyson because I think he was recently asked in an interview about those comments that Johnny Nelson made. And he said that even he laughed about it. So about the Tennyson beating Gervonta. But you know what? If he knocks out this guy, which he probably will, then I expect to see James Tennyson live on Sky calling out Gervonta.
Big up IB in the chat, man. He's put, y'all must have forgot. IB is back. What's going on, bro? Good to have you here. Stefan has put here, has Beterbiev called out Bivol? Let's flip it.
Well, that's a good point as well. That's a good point.
But I'm
No,
not.
but
I'm
I
not
think
tapping for guilt.
Beterbiev, to be fair to Beterbiev, he has said he wants to unify the belts. Now, he may not have specifically called out Bivol, which again is disappointing in my view. But at least he's expressed a desire to want to unify the belts. I've not heard that from out of Bivol's mouth. I've heard him talking about Canelo. And when I read that, man, I was just so disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, I want to see you unify the belts.
IB has put here, Bivol will take Spider to school. Anyone in the comments who disagrees is wrong. So IB is putting his foot down and letting people know. And look, listen.
No one's going to
Bivol is
argue with that.
favorite. Bivol is the favorite in this, isn't
Yeah,
it?
well, listen, no one's arguing with that. Listen, Bivol is, like I said, levels above in terms of resume, in terms of what he's achieved in the sport today. If Craig Richards was to beat Bivol on Saturday, that would go down in British boxing history as one of the biggest upsets in recent years. Let's have it right. Bivol's on another level to Craig Richards. And I think everybody in the boxing fraternity in this country knows that. Even people probably inside Craig Richards' camp knows that, you know what I mean? So you're not really telling us much here. We know that, man. But hey.
Conrad has said here, Beterbiev is 36. What is he waiting for? Stefan has put here, Tennyson is a great TV fighter, but he's not that durable. If Straffon can hold a shot, he could be worth a punt. His record suggests that he's a puncher. IB has said, fair guys, defo agree. Also, where's the guy you had on last time? Sorry, I forgot his name. I defo agree with Laurie about it being the biggest upset if Spider wins. Shane, Shane's not on here this week, but we'll get him on in future weeks, man, for sure. Shane's always a good contributor to the show. So, yeah, we'll get him on for sure, man.
Although it's interesting to know, I spoke to Shane in the week, and not even he's excited about this Bivol-Richards fight because he knows, like we all know, that, let's be honest, man, if we didn't know Craig Richards, we'd be saying that this is an easy fight. Now, listen, I'm coming from the perspective that Craig Richards is a British fighter. He's a very likable guy. He's honest, he's hardworking, and he's improving. I'm hoping that he can bring his A game. He's going to need his A game to have any chance. But I'm also hoping him bringing his A game, maybe Bivol's underestimating him slightly. Craig being at home, he might rise to that level that will make it really competitive and he gets a win. And that's what I'm hoping for, man.
Okay. A guy called Henry has put here, I'm sorry, I can't get over the fact that this is a card filler. Has there been a weirder one? I don't know. I can't think of anything in my mind right now. Let's move on because obviously we need to get onto the other shows. Big up to the other guys in the comments here, Conrad Boxing, Nathan as well. He's talking about Friday's card. That's what I want to get onto you about as well. Sonny Edwards, he's in a bit deep here, isn't he? World title shot. How do you see it going?
Yeah, man, he's in a big one indeed. His first world title fight. I mean, Sonny Edwards is a very, very skillful boxer. I love watching him, man. Obviously, he's not a big puncher or nothing like that. But the way he moves and you can almost see him playing chess in there when he fights, you know what I mean? But he is up against it. He's fighting a South African guy, Mutalani, I think his name is. Yeah. Very experienced. He's had 30-odd fights. I think he's only lost 2. One of them was to Nonito Donaire, so there's no shame in that. And he's also fought a number of good guys and good wins on his record. One in particular that stands out is that he knocked out Zolani Tete, you know what I mean? And we know Zolani Tete from coming over here and obliterating Paul Butler. So that's a very good win. So in terms of their record and experience, you would have to make the South African guy favorite. But
they know each other pretty well.
Sorry?
They know each other quite well, these two.
Yeah. Apparently so.
Yeah.
You would have to make the South African favorite, but Sonny Edwards can rise to the occasion and not get caught with anything too early. He's definitely got a chance, man, because he's got some superior boxing skills.
Good shows this weekend, man. I mean, we've got Sonny Edwards on Friday headlining. We've got obviously the show on Saturday, and also got Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola, like we were speaking about earlier, over there in LA, I think it is. I think
that one's a bit of a mismatch, to be honest, man. I mean, that if Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola goes beyond round 6, I will be surprised.
Yeah.
Because Chris Arreola, let's be honest, man, years ago, in the mid-2000s probably, he was a decent fighter. And even then, he never really hit the heights, did he? More recently, we saw him get smashed to pieces by Deontay Wilder. And I think in that fight, Deontay Wilder was basically fighting one-handed, which is why it took him the mid rounds to get Ariola out of there. I mean, and yes, Andy Ruiz is coming off that loss to Anthony Joshua, where he didn't conduct himself in the greatest glory because he wasn't in proper condition to fight. Since then, he changed trainers. He's gone with the Reynosos, who train obviously Saul Alvarez, Canelo. He's lost a lot of weight. He's looking motivated. He's looking relatively ripped for him. And let's be honest, man. Andrew Ruiz is one of those guys, man. He's a very good fighter. He's got good boxing skills. He can punch. He's very experienced. And I expect him to be way too much for Ariola, man. Way too much. I'd be surprised if this fight goes beyond 6-7 rounds.
Even Ariola at his best wasn't as good as Andy Ruiz, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Go to the comments here. Stefan has put, big up a guy called Henry. That video you did on him was quality. Hoping Smith could win. That's Kieran Smith. Good opportunity. Yeah, big up a guy called Henry, man. Does very good content over there on his channel. And it's good to have him here today. Good to have him here.
Yeah, that fight between Troy Williamson and Kieran Smith, that is going to be a very competitive fight, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Because Troy Williamson, he had the big build-up, didn't he? Coming out of the amateurs. Yeah. He's not quite done it yet. But I think he's hoping that he can get a big win and establish himself in the domestic scene and maybe go on and fight for titles. So, yeah. And that light middleweight division, man, you know what I mean? That's smoking right now.
Domestically and on the world level.
Yeah, yeah. So, Troy Williamson, he was a very good amateur, by the way. He was also on the GB squad, ABA champion and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that fight.
IB has put here, Rui. I don't know if you saw this earlier on this week where Rui was doing his ranked heavyweights. I think it was 4 or 5 IB, but he put here, Rui's put Ariola as his 4th best heavyweight in the world.
I think he was talking about the 4th best heavyweight in Los Angeles, probably. Yeah.
That was some banter. That was, man. That was some real banter when because Ruiz couldn't even justify it. He was like, "Yeah, he's from LA," and I'm like, "Yeah, so like, what are you putting him up there for?"
That's what he meant. That's what he meant, Daryl. The 4th best heavyweight in LA. And you know what? I'm not being funny. I bet if I look down the list of heavyweights in LA, I bet he's not even as high as that. Yeah. This is. Let's be honest, man. Let's keep it 100. PBC are putting on this fight. They're trying to capture the Mexican or American Mexican market by putting this on as a pay-per-view. This is remotely competitive, man. I mean, listen, Ariola is no punk. He's going to go in there and he's going to try. He's done that all his career. But like you said yourself, even when he was good, was he really that good? You know what I mean? He wasn't really, was he? Because every time he came up against the better guys, they would always put him in his place. And quite comprehensively as well. So I don't expect this fight to be particularly competitive.
No,
maybe Ruiz might carry him for a few rounds and then decide to get rid of him round about the halfway mark.
Yeah. Conrad Boxing has put here, on a different note, Fury's promoters make negative comments about the AJ fight, and shortly after we see Wilder back in the gym. Is this a coincidence?
Well, that's an interesting one because I'm seeing on YouTube and on social media a lot of activity now growing, suggesting that there might be, you know what I mean? The plot thickens, man. There might be some talk about Wilder and Fury in a trilogy fight. And this is what I'm saying, like every week for about the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been on this show. And you've asked me, or it's been mentioned, oh, do you think the fight's going to happen now? And we keep saying, don't we? Until we see the two of them sign it and the fight and the date and everything is announced, I can't get excited about this Fury AJ fight. And I tell you what, they better announce something soon.
They need to announce it soon, you know.
Yeah, because it's going to get to the stage where people are going to say, so what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How I feel.
It's honestly going to get to that stage now. It could end up like the Errol Spence Crawford fight that never happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. IB has said here, we heard he lost weight up until the weigh-in of the rematch when the brother didn't take his vest off. I believe it when he's on the scales. He's talking about Andy Ruiz, isn't he?
Yeah, he's right. IB's right about that.
No, but you ain't seen the pictures of him. He looks good, man.
Because we heard similar stories about how he's devastating. He looked in training and how he's going to knock AJ out in the rematch. And we've been working on different things. And since that last fight, I've got even better. And then, like you said, man, the man turned up at the weigh-in, didn't take his shirt off. And on fight night, we saw white. So, but listen, man, even if I'm going to keep it 100, even if Ruiz turns up overweight on fight night, he will still have way too much for Arreola. Way too much.
Stefan has put here, if Sonny is as busy in the ring as he is on Twitter, he could outwork Matalane, but jokes aside, he'll get stopped late. So he said there. A guy called Henry said Kieran beat Cash in the amateurs. Just saying. Big up my bro DS, man. What's going on, bro? He's put good evening, gents. Good evening, brother. Good to have you here, man. Ian Hamilton has put, let's remember this is pay-per-view in the States and it costs more. Ruiz talks a good game and he always seems to lose loads of weight. Let's see what the scales say. Ruiz wins, you know he'll call out Wilder.
Well, let's hope he does win and let's hope he does call out Wilder because that would be a great fight, that one. You know what I mean? And to me, that's a 50-50. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I see Wilder back in the gym and he's talking smack. And you know what? I like to see that. He was working out with Malik Scott, who's his new trainer. And I have to say, he did look quite sharp. Did you see the footage of that?
Yeah, I did.
Did you think he looked quite sharp?
He did look pretty. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he was hitting pads with some venom, man.
Yeah, good.
And you know what? This is what we want to see. We want to see Deontay back in the ring, man. All this about loaded gloves and spiking water and all that. That was just going nowhere. It was ridiculous for the most part. He needs to get back in there, man. He needs to get back in that ring. He needs to get some fights in, and listen, man, he lost that one fight. It's not the end of the world. Yeah. You know what I mean? Tyson Fury is arguably the best heavyweight in the world. There's no shame really in losing to Tyson Fury. I think the shame was the way he conducted himself after the fight. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you look at the resumes of the best fighters in history, going way, way back, you know what I mean? They've all lost. Some of them have had devastating losses. I mean, listen, we said it a few weeks ago on the show, didn't we? Look at Manny Pacquiao. Yep. He got absolutely slept, didn't he? By one man Marquez. I thought at that time, I was saying to you, didn't I? I didn't think we'd see him back in the ring again. And look what he's done since then. Yep. So, you know.
Let's go through these comments quickly, man, because we've still got two more topics I want to talk about before we go off today. And conscious we haven't got much time left, so quickly run through these. Nathan has put Arreola is a tough guy. I'll give him that.
Listen, I know several tough guys, but they wouldn't do anything in the ring.
Stefan has put here, Arreola is in great shape for this fight. Diaz puts, if Fury fights Wilder again, I think we'll likely see AJ versus Usyk, and that could also open the door for White versus Joyce. Stefan has also put, I can't see Reynoso taking any nonsense. I believe Ruiz is in great condition for this. Conrad agrees. Nathan,
the thing about Ruiz is, Daryl, is that, okay, he's in great shape, presumably, for this fight. Presumably, he wins this fight, and he looks sensational. Everyone say, wow, wow. The problem with Andy Ruiz has had throughout his career, and several trainers have attested to this. I've heard Freddie Roach talk about it. I've heard his previous trainer talk about it, whose name escapes me at the moment. I've even heard amateur trainers of Ruiz said, listen, this guy is gifted, but he just cannot discipline himself outside the ring with his eating habits and his training and all the rest of it. So
I don't think he'll be able to get away with it with Reynoso, though.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan has put here, Felix Cash was very impressive last week. I favoured him to win, but didn't think he'll be as one-sided. Yeah, we spoke about that earlier on in the show. But yeah, I agree with you there, Nathan. IB has put, if anyone's bored, check out Malik Scott's Instagram. His Instagram's wild, you know. I don't know if you've seen his Instagram, but he's always put, yeah, I ain't been on there for a while, but he does put some messed up stuff on there.
Naked pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a bit weird.
Hopefully Benzo can bounce back. Stefan's put here, people can say what they want about Wilder, but he is great for boxing. Pure entertainment. Wilder, the boxer, gets way too much hate from boxing fans.
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah,
I was a fan of Wilder, and I still am, which is why I said I just wanted him to put all that other stuff to the side and focus on his boxing career. Because, listen, man, a fit, ready, raring to go Deontay Wilder is great for heavyweight boxing.
Yeah. IB has put here, highlight of Ruiz AJ2 was Ruiz nonchalantly asking who wants to see number 3. And
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
I remember watching that and thinking, this guy is just so out of touch with what's going on, isn't he? Like, he's delusional to think that anyone would want to see that again. But you know what it is, though, Daryl? You know what it is, right? Boxing and sport itself is such a weird phenomenon that You imagine if Ruiz gets 2 or 3 wins and AJ keeps winning. You could almost see that down the line, couldn't you? You could see people say, listen, why not have that third fight? Because, you know what I mean, Ruiz has won one, AJ's won one. It's only fair that they should have a third fight. So listen, there's still time out there for Ruiz to make his mark. And if he does make his mark, I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 people calling for that fight.
Let's talk about Ryan Garcia, man. It was announced earlier on this week. Well, yeah, it was this week or last week? Whenever, last week, I think it was. That his fight against Fortuna will now not be going ahead. He said that he's going to take a little break from boxing to concentrate on his mental health. Now, while we speak about this subject, let's just say, first of all, that mental health is a serious topic. And do you know what I mean? People do suffer through this. And, you know, I hope that people do get the help that they need from this. But I've seen a bit of a mixed reaction to Ryan Garcia, with him pulling out because of this mental health, partly because of the videos we saw of him on holiday at the moment. I don't know. So there have been some rumors about why he pulled out of the fight, and it could be something to do with a female and whatever. I don't know, of course, but I don't think a lot of attention is being given to Fortuna, if I'm honest. When you look at all the fights that he's been pulled out of now, this is one of 4, I think 4 big fights that he could have had that's now not taking place. What about him? And like I said, I hope Ryan Garcia, if he really is going through something, then I hope he does get the help he needs. Like I said, mental health is a serious thing. But let's not forget about Fortuna either. That's all I'm saying about that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And listen, I just want to say this on mental health. Listen, man, I have had issues in the past with mental health. I've suffered some tragedy. You have as well, Daryl, in our family. And that left me at a very low point in my life. So I know what it's like to go through issues of depression. I know that. I'm going to say that straight off the bat. I don't know what the exact issue is with Ryan Garcia. I don't know how legitimate or otherwise, how authentic or otherwise it is. What I would say is, though, is that Ryan Garcia, the way he conducts himself, I hope he will use what's happening now as a way to reappraise himself as a fighter and his approach to the sport. Because I've been very critical of him in the past, the way he's conducted his career to date, the way he's almost approached it from an almost entitled point of view. He doesn't come across to me as somebody who's particularly in love with the sport. I think there's a real tension there between Ryan Garcia, the boxer, and Ryan Garcia, the celebrity. And I can't quite work out what he wants to do. I get the impression that he's not somebody in love with the game. I really do. I get the impression that he's more in love with the fame and the celebrity that he can get from being a great fighter, rather than him wanting to win titles and be a great boxer. You know what I mean? So he needs to sort himself out. There's been all sorts of rumors going around about the way he lives his life, the womanizing. People have said he may have kids outside of his relationship, and that's led to issues in this relationship, which has caused this breakdown. I don't know how true that is, but I think it's right that I should introduce that, because if you go online, you will see that that is what a lot of people are speculating. And then, of course, we saw videos emerging of him apparently in Hawaii with his girlfriend, where, let's be honest, man, he didn't look very upset in the video, did he? So I don't know what's going on with him, but I do know that mental health is a serious thing. I've been affected by it in the past. So have you, Daryl. We had to, you know what I mean, address that. And now we've come through the other side relatively okay. So listen, man, I'm not belittling mental health, but I'm saying Ryan Garcia, I would say, once he's got through this period, he needs to reassess what he's doing in boxing, because I'm not sure whether boxing is right for him, is what I'm saying.
He's blessed with like tremendous talent. Do you know what I mean? Physical gifts.
He's blessed with tremendous natural gifts that makes him a good fighter, but I'm not sure whether he's got the mental discipline to be a top boxer, and everything that goes with the sport is, I guess, is what I'm saying.
For me, it's a bit of a red flag, man. I mean, I know, listen, the Luke Campbell fight was a big fight. Do you know what I mean? The Americans didn't seem to rate Luke Campbell as much, but we know how good Luke Campbell is. So that was a big win. But then his behavior after just disturbed me. I'm not going to lie, man. I have to keep it 100 here and just say, like, and I saw a lot of people making excuses for him. And I just like, look, man, if we're going to be real and like just say what we're seeing here, it's not acceptable. Like in that fight, it was an eliminator for Devin Haney's belt. After that fight, you know what I mean? You kind of took yourself to say like, no, I don't need to fight for this now. I'm going for Tank. Let me go for Tank. If Tank don't fight me next, that's it. Tank's a coward. Tank's this, Tank's that. Yeah. And then we all kind of gave him a little pass for that because we thought, okay, you should be fighting Devin Haney, really, but you're not going to, even though that was an eliminator that you fought Luke Campbell in, you won it. The prize of that fight was to fight Devin Haney. You said, no, I want to fight Gervonta. We were kind of like, other people were like, yeah, that's fine. We were like, all right, we'll take Gervonta then. Then we were calling out Gervonta mercilessly over the next few weeks after that. You didn't fight him. Do you know what I mean? And it fought Fortuna. Everyone was like, okay, Fortuna is still a good opponent. And now, obviously, this situation has happened. I don't know if his mental health was suffering then. I think it might have been around that point as well. So maybe that might have led him to act out of character on certain things. But it didn't show me that you were really trying to become the undisputed. Like Teofimo Lopez, when he went for Loma, for example. Yeah. It didn't really show me. I don't know what you think about it, but yeah.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I've been very critical of Ryan Garcia in the past. And because of this mental health thing, I'm not going to stop being critical of him now. I thought he showed a lot of disrespect to other boxers and to the game itself. And let's face it, he was enabled by the likes of people like Chris Mannix, shoving a camera in front of his face and telling him, oh, you're the king, you can do what you want to do. I remember calling that bullshit out from the time and saying that is crap, what they've done there. And now we're seeing a kind of result effect from that, aren't we? When you enable a young, immature kid like that and tell him he can do what he wants to do, that's how he started acting out. Calling out Tank, calling out Pacquiao. We knew you weren't going to get those fights.
Yeah.
Even his own promoter, Oscar, was saying that, no, we're not looking for that right now. And then he was basically telling other established fighters, you're not good enough to share a ring with me. He hadn't even won a world title yet. You know what I mean? He was acting a diva, man. More so than Floyd and Pacquiao and Errol Spence and people like that. Guys who have won several world titles in their career and achieved so much. They weren't even carrying on like that. So you've got to wonder what was going on there. So maybe you're right. Maybe these mental health problems were surfacing way back then. But I'm strongly suspecting, man, that this is a guy that's on social media a lot. And we know what social media can do to some young people. It can put you in a space where it's very intense. There's a lot going on in your life and you feel like you have to live up to all these different things. And like I said before, I'm questioning whether he really wants to pay the price of being a fighter. Listen, being a professional fighter is not just what happens in the ring. It's not just happens when you're in the gym. It's how you conduct yourself. It's a lifestyle. You know what I mean? And you have to buy into that, especially at the top level. You know what I mean? You have to buy into that totally. And I'm looking at Ryan Garcia, and I don't think at this stage whether he's prepared to commit to that, whether he's prepared to pay those prices and make those sacrifices. I'm looking at a young kid who looks like he wants to enjoy his life. He's got all these legions of followers on Instagram, and he just looks to me like an Instagram fighter. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, I'm going to tell you a little story now. I remember, and I said this to you off camera, Darryl, and this is true. I remember watching in the lead up to the Luke Campbell fight, I saw a short video with Jake Paul, no less, YouTube fighter. And he was calling out Ryan Garcia and saying, listen, Ryan, get your ass back in the gym. You're running around LA, sleeping with all these girls. You know what I mean? There's talk about you having kids all over the place. You need to get back in the gym and concentrate on this fight. That was what YouTuber Jake Paul was telling Ryan Garcia, who's supposed to be this up-and-coming fighter, you know what I mean, world champion, future, you know what I mean, winner of several world titles. That's what Jake Paul was telling him. And Jake Paul is a YouTuber, part-time fighter. And he was saying that to Ryan Garcia. And that was before the Luke Campbell fight. Now, he won the Luke Campbell fight and his head exploded with ego. So you can imagine he's way worse now than he was then. He just comes across as spoiled, entitled. Yes, he's very talented, but that's part of the problem because he's got the physical gifts and the kid can fight. but it's gone to his head and he don't know how to handle it. And the other thing I would say as well is that he doesn't appear to have strong people around him that can rein him in. When he was saying all this outlandish stuff, you would have hoped that somebody would have been there behind him saying, listen, man, Ryan, you need to slow down. Let's take your career one step at a time. You've done great. You beat Luke Campbell. It was a great win. You know what I mean? We're plotting your path now. Let's just take it easy, man. Nah, instead of that, no, Devin Haney's not good enough to fight me. I want Tank. Oh, Tank, if you don't sign that fight within 2 days, I'm fighting Pacquiao. Then he was fighting Pacquiao. Then it was just all nonsense. And I think it's all blown up, man.
We go through these comments, man. Kieran Rogers has put here, totally agree on that point, Laurie. I think he's more interested in the fame. Conrad has said here, for some reason, Ryan still doesn't feel like a full-time boxer to me. No. And then he's put here, he doesn't owe me anything, no, and I hope he'll find his way in life. I totally agree.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I've been very critical of him, but I don't wish bad on him. That's the difference. You know what I mean? I don't wish bad on no man. Yeah. I just hope he sorts himself out, but I'm saying long-term, he's going to have to make that decision. Does he want to commit himself to boxing or not? And that's going to be a huge decision he has to make.
Okay. A guy called Henry has put, Chris Mannix, is he the worst bro? Oh, don't get Laurie started on that, man. A guy called here, you haven't been on this show every week. This guy, Chris Mannix, that's a swear word over here, according to Laurie, for sure. But yeah, Nathan has put here, Mannix is awful, but most guys on the broadcast at the moment are, in my opinion. IB has put here, great observation, guys. How do you guys rank Teofimo, Haney, Tank, and Garcia? It's in that order for me. It's in that order for me too.
I disagree. I think out of all those four, I think Haney and Tank. And you know what?
I put Tank ahead of Haney.
I put Tank in terms of natural talent, but I think in terms of desire, work rate, and how they hold themselves as professionals, I think I'll go for Devin Haney, man. He seems to be
that's just the eye tester you're looking at, right?
Yes, yes. So far. I mean, listen, man. He just seems to be a bit more mature in terms of boxing than the rest of them. He has said some pretty wacky stuff as well, like talking about purses and cars and stuff like that. But I just get the impression, man, he's a bit more zoned in than some of those other guys. Teofimo's a great talent, but again, I've seen it with him. He appears to be underestimating Kambosos, and I'm not sure that's a good idea, man. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, when I listen to Haney and when I watch him, he seems to be a bit more zoned in than those other guys. And I think with Tank, he's just got ridiculous levels of natural talent and power. So, but they're all good fighters, though, all of them.
Yeah. Kieran's put facts here. Nathan said, how many times did they call Ryan Garcia good looking in that fight? Sergio Moore was shocking.
I know, man. They all, and was it, I don't know if it was Nathan who made the point about the broadcasters. The trouble with broadcasters at the moment is that we live in a world where there's too much self-interest. So you'll get guys like Sergio Moore and Chris Mannix who work for the DAZN and people like, they make it so obvious, man. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like, you know what I mean? Try and introduce a little bit of objectivity into your commentating, you know what I mean? At least give the other guys some credit. Yeah. You know what I mean? We know you're rocking with a certain fighter, but come on, man. Pump the brakes a little bit.
Do it too.
I mean? Just make it look well. And he do it on Sky as well. I mean, you criticize Johnny Nelson. I've heard Matt Macklin, he said some ridiculous things. And even in the way they score the fights, they don't give the other fighters credit. And they don't realize, man, they're being detrimental to the sport when you do that, because it takes two to tango. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Conrad has put here, Loma is missing in that list. Yeah, people are sleeping on Loma, man.
No, but I think that list was just talking about the younger guys. Loma's coming to the end of his career. He's been a great fighter. He's got a very hard fight coming up, by the way, when he's fighting that Japanese guy. So he's coming off that loss. We'll see how he bounces back.
Do you know who else has got a hard fight coming up?
Who's that?
Floyd Mayweather, man. Going to be fighting Logan Paul in June.
Did you say a fight?
That got announced today. June, I think it's June the 6th or June the 9th, one of them days there. Our last topic of today, Floyd Mayweather, 44 years old, coming back in an exhibition against Logan Paul.
Floyd is another one of those fighters, sportsmen a lot, but fighters in particular, who just not able to retire and walk off into the sunset with that fulfillment. That fulfillment of what he's done is enough. You know what I mean? He needs to take a leaf out of the book, like someone like Joe Calzaki's book. You know what I mean? If you listen to Joe Calzaki, when he talks about boxing, he will tell you, listen, I'm fulfilled. I did everything I wanted to do. I'm happy with my career. I made a lot of money. I'm now happy to walk away. Floyd, on the other hand, has achieved a lot more than even someone like Joe Calzaki, who was a great fighter. But Floyd is levels above that. He's made way more money than Joe Calzaki, and yet he's not fulfilled. And I think a part of that is ego. He cannot not be the most talked about person out there. He cannot just let the sport go without him being involved in some way or form. And even when he is involved, if you notice, he's Tank's promoter to get to the press conferences, and Floyd will be trying to hijack the press conference. And he'd be talking about who he's fighting next as opposed to Tank's fights. You know what I mean? Yeah. So his ego won't allow him to come away from the sport. And that's what's always going to drag him back in, man. I mean, and this fight as well, man. Listen, Logan Paul, really? I mean, I don't know what to say, man, because there are going to be people out there that are going to buy this stuff. And I don't know who they are. I mean, I've not come across anybody that's remotely interested in it. But I guess there must be, you know what I mean? I couldn't give a stuff about this fight, man. I don't care about it. I won't be buying it. I might, if there's a highlight reel knockout to be seen, I might watch 10 seconds on YouTube when it comes out. But I've got absolutely no interest in it at all.
Well, I guess a guy called Henry's wrong then. I guess a guy called Henry's wrong here then, because he's put, I'm new here, but Laurie seems like the kind of guy that would get hyped for Logan Paul fighting Floyd. Am I wrong?
No, he's very wrong about that, man. He's very wrong about that.
Yeah, he's definitely joking around with that one.
I think he's winding me up. But listen, the brother Jake Paul, I've probably got a bit more interest in what he's doing, because at least he's trying to fight guys that are at his level. You know what I mean? Retired MMA fighters. He's trying to create a little storm by doing that. That is remotely interesting, I guess. But Logan Paul fighting Floyd, it's a joke team, man. It's a joke team. I've got absolutely no interest in it. The less said about it, the better. But then, like I said, there are some gullible people out there that will actually buy it. So what can I say, man? Maybe I'm showing my age, but it's got absolutely zero interest for me.
Yeah, have to agree on that one, man. I've got no interest in this whatsoever, man. Somebody put, I put the fight up on my Instagram this morning, and somebody put, more celebrity deathmatch was more. I was more interested in that than this particular fight here, man. So that kind of sums it up, really, our thoughts on that particular fight. But listen, we're going to have to wrap it up today, man. It's going to be a shorter show than normal. Some good fights this weekend, man. Well, some big shows this weekend. Let me say that. Friday, we've got Sonny Edwards. We've got Saturday, we've got Chisora-Parker. Got Arreola, Andy Ruiz in action. So a lot of big names in action. Not as many 50-50 fights, but there are a lot of names out there. So give me your thoughts, Laurie, while we wrap it up and before we go on to next week.
Listen, man, it's just good to have boxing back on TV, get a chance to catch up with some big fighters in the game. And what I would say is, although looking at the fights, you're thinking a lot of them not going to be that competitive, but the way boxing is, you can guarantee yourself that at least one or two of those fights over the weekend are going to throw up some surprises. They are going to be competitive, and there may be a few shocks in there, so you don't know. So let's hope for that. But like I said, good luck to people like Craig Richards and Sonny Edwards, who are going up for world titles against very good opponents. Let's hope that one or both of them can get the wins.
Conrad has said here, I can't wait for the next podcast where you guys praise Parker for his crazy knockout. If he does, I'll praise him. We'll praise him. Well, I mean, yeah, I'll praise him. I'll praise him.
Yeah, listen, man, if he's worthy of the praise, he'll get the praise. It's just that, you know what I mean? Let's be honest, man. We've been let down by this guy so many times in the past. You can't really blame us for being apathetic about him, you know what I mean? He's created that himself. Yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, he talked so much about what he's going to do and this and that and the Samoan warrior and this and that, and he's not lived up to it. Not by a long way, which is why we've called him out. Now, if he's to go in there on Saturday and produce a whirlwind performance and get Derek out of there in devastating fashion, we will give him his plaudits up to a point. But then it also has to be borne in mind that he's fighting a Derek Chisora, man, that is, you know what I mean? He's long in the tooth, to say the least, Derek. And he wouldn't be doing anything that no one's not done before, has it? I mean, listen, David A. devastatingly KO'd Derek Chisora, must be about 10 years ago now. Dillian White, about 3 or 4 years ago, did a similar thing. Devastating. You know what I mean? So, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, guys, that wraps it up for this week, man. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for adding in your comments. Don't forget, before you leave, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, man. Let's try and get it out there. Let's try and get more people involved. Big up to everybody in the chat, as always, man. And listen, Laurie, we'll be back next week, man. Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on today. Enjoyed talking about it. Boxing is one of my passions with you. Great show, great content, man. People like, share, subscribe, share the video, man. Share the video, man. Please share the video, like it, subscribe, do all of that stuff. But for now, we're out of here, man. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Peace. Have a good evening.